So as I was saying that, I think in so many ways, relationships are unknowable. For example, the relationship between two life partners, it's impenetrable and unknowable from the outside, and it's barely penetrable and knowable by the people who are in it. So, but since it's such an important part of life, um, and since relationships are also uh, maybe the source of most of our problems, whether we have them or not, um, and the causes of our suffering and our suffer either in its presence or its absence in our lives, and whether our relationship is with ourselves or with other people, it's really the source of most of our problems as we go through our daily lives. And we think maybe that our problems are mostly with other people, but really it's with ourselves. So, but it's with ourselves in relationship. And the fourth noble truth is really all about this, how to be with oneself and with others, and ethics. And there are other relational Buddhist instructions, but the fourth noble truth is probably the earliest and the basis on which the others were developed. There is the Vinaya, the set of instructions, over 300 of them and several more for women, for monks and nuns in the early monastic communities. And this is the Vinaya is part of the Pali canon, first oral and then written down in the first century before the Common Era. And then there are the precepts, probably developed much later in China, all and that we take as ordinees in our Zen tradition. And all of these we do with a view to the attainment of enlightenment. And it's thought that the emphasis in the early communities for which the Vinaya was developed was on individual enlightenment and the work that you have to do primarily with and for yourself. And I think that the fourth noble truth, which is the Eightfold Path, really reflects that. Half or over half of the 8 spokes on the wheel are about individual endeavor. View, intention, effort, mindfulness, and meditation. Only 3 directly address relationship with others: speech, action, and livelihood. The other 5 are about our relationship with ourselves. It's speculated that the Vinaya was developed as the Buddha realized that people need more explicit instructions about how to live together, because we get confused and we don't always know what to do. And I think that the reason that there are over 300 rules is that it's so hard. So our tradition started with emphasis on personal conduct. The Mahayana movement shifted the emphasis to include others, that my enlightenment and happiness are directly related to yours. And finally, the Vajrayana approach from the Diamond Sutra asserts that every moment, whether pleasant or unpleasant, is an opportunity for awakening. Show up, tell the truth, detach from the outcome. Put your cards on the table and remain calm. My friend Perti says, the purpose of marriage is friction. These are a few aphorisms that I use when the going gets tough, when the rubber meets the road, and the rubber is meeting the road almost all the time, or so it seems. I'm either having trouble with myself or with someone else, and I try to fix it, and then there's something else. If I'm always trying to fix it, I've missed the point of practice, which is the practice itself. The Vipassana teacher, Philip Moffitt, calls this tendency to think it think that we can fix it, transactional trust. In transactional trust, you are counting on a future result to happen. It's performance-based, involves an agreed-upon exchange, and is measured by outcomes, such as when your car breaks down and you take it to a mechanic and they fix it, and you pay them. Transactional trust is based on mutual self-interest and involves acting according to agreement. It has a certain flavor of the I-it relationship that I talked about last week. The I, the ego, as we say, is at the center. I need something, I ask for something, I get it, or I don't get it. But let's say I get it, and I give something. I treat the other person like a commodity in a way. We trust each other just as far as that transaction. In intimate relationships, the stakes get much higher because we reveal ourselves much more fully, and in exchange, we are asked to accept the other person as they reveal themselves. And if we treat each other as things, we have a problem. Does that mean that transactional trust has no place in relationships? No, of course not, it doesn't. In fact, it's important. But first, I think you have to learn to trust yourself. You are responsible for the care and maintenance of your body, heart, and mind, of yourself. And you need to have some evidence that you are safe with another person. In intimate relationships, we entrust ourselves to one another, but it's not perfect ever. And there is risk, as Bruce mentioned last week, risk of being hurt and of hurting the other person. In fact, we take that risk because mutual hurt is inevitable. It's tempting to think if I get rid of my self-centered ego, then everything will be fine. Well, good luck with that. That's a perfectionist, idealistic approach, which is absolutely not the Zen way. And it's also not possible. That would be actually suicide. And so it's not desirable to get to completely rid oneself of the self. You have to have an ego. And the question is, as I said last week, when is it I and when is it us? When to hold my ego needs and when to hold them. When to transact and when to let go of transaction, and how to decide. Back to serenity, courage, and wisdom. Our practice does not prescribe transaction. It says, watch yourself and your motives and intentions and actions. Ask yourself, is this wise? Is this compassionate? Is it wise for both of us? Is it compassionate and caring for both of us? When we do this, we're shifting the focus of trust, not to another person, but to the wisdom and compassion of awareness and to our own bodhicitta, from which we view the suffering of both people. Because wisdom and compassion do not discriminate. No one, including you, is left out. And we also invest our trust in the practice itself. In fact, this is how we invest our trust in the practice of being completely present to the whole of the circumstances, just as they present themselves. We see difficulties, misunderstandings, and conflicts as opportunities for practice and growth, and we trust in our ability to do so. And we risk the possibility that our partner may not be on the same page as we are. But it's worth the risk, because when they are, it really is good. This removes the transitional quality from trust, or at least softens it. because the practice of entering gentle and clear awareness is inclusive. In this way, we come to see, and this is a quote from Philip Moffat. This way, we come to see that external conditions are in the end, not a reliable source of happiness or meaning, because they are always changing. So, and external conditions include our partner. Our partner is always changing, just as we are. And you have no control of the outcome of your actions. You don't get what you want, or you get it and then it goes away, or you no longer want it, or something else happens and you can no longer enjoy it. With trust that the practice itself is the path, trust in the wisdom and compassion of awareness, our own bodhicitta, you accept the hard facts of life, that things are always changing, the future is uncertain, and wants and fears are endless. My wants and fears are endless, and so is my partner. And this is an unknowing posture, a posture that sees and accepts the reality of the present moment and works with it as well as possible. It sees clearly what is possible to accept of oneself and what is possible to expect from others and what is not. This posture loves, understands, and accepts you in all your complexity and frailty, just as you are. Which makes me think of Mr. Rogers. You can trust that with all your whole self and keep on trusting it. That's the refuge, and it's always there. And Moffat continues, you surrender measuring your life by future outcomes, concentrating on how well you are able to be present in the moment. You have the strength to stay with the experience of your life, whether or not you have a strong feeling of transactional trust. So you are able to trust the experience of your life, whatever it is. And don't get me wrong, this is not a prescription for staying in an abusive relationship. That would be a failure of wisdom and compassion for yourself. This is not a prescription. It's a view. It's a standpoint of view, a way of being with whatever arises. It's what is meant by non-attachment, by letting go. So it doesn't mean caring less for you or anyone else, or feeling less sadness or grief. It frees you to care more, to feel more, to meet life more directly, and to decide with clarity and gentleness how to act. And this is taking refuge in Buddha mind, the mind of unknowing that seeks the way, taking refuge in the practice of awakening, in the practice of taking the backward step. That is refuge in the Dharma, of taking refuge in the Sangha, the power of relationship to spark the opportunities for practice and awakening. Thank you. So let's take a couple of minutes to reflect and gather our thoughts.